Hi guys, Mr. N, welcome back. Nevada Virtual Academy is moving on, multiplying real numbers. We are still in Unit 3. You must be about mid-unit at this point, and growing strong, right? When you multiply real numbers, the first thing you have to decide and find would be the sign of your product, right? The sign of your result. And the basic rules are that if you have the same signs, if you have to multiply numbers with the same sign, your product is always going to be positive, right? If you multiply numbers with different signs, as you can see the first topic in my table here, your product will always be negative, and as you can see the example, to negative 2x times 5y, the sign will be negative, right? And then you multiply your coefficients. 2 times 5 is 10, x times y will be xy, and that's why the answer here would be negative 10xy. What I said, if you have the same sign, will always be positive, and if you multiply by negative 1, that will always change your sign. Now, a rule to keep in mind, and a trick, if you have to multiply many negative numbers in your product, right? Let's say it's a huge one, and I can give you an example here. Let's say if I have negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 3 times negative 4 times, and I don't know, I'm going to multiply by negative numbers, times negative 100, times, I don't know, negative 101 if you want. And I know this number of negative numbers here is odd, okay? Odd factors. Then your product is going to be a negative number, right? Negative, whatever that will be. If you have even factors, then your product is going to be positive. So keep this in mind. And one way to prove that is just think about it. Every negative times another negative will be positive. Negative times negative, positive. And eventually here you will have, only the last term being left as negative, because all the other products will be a negative times a negative. And because all this, factors up to the last one will multiply to a positive, because you're multiplying a positive by a negative number, your answer here will be negative. But let's do a few examples to be more or better understood, right? Okay, and problem number 1. What I said, when you multiply, the first thing that I'm recommending is to decide what is your sign. And I have a negative times a negative. That will give me a positive product, right? And all you have to do next is just multiply the two numbers, 24 times 2, ignoring any sign, because you are done. You said this is going to be positive. 24 times 2 is going to be 48. Okay? Next one. I have a positive number times a negative number. I definitely know that my answer is going to be negative. All I have to do next would be to multiply the two decimals, right? To multiply decimals, do you guys remember the rule? You just multiply your numbers, ignoring the decimal point, right? So I got 6 times 3, which is 18. And then I will count how many digits I have over the decimal. I have 1 in the first number, but that's a 0, right? That doesn't matter. And then I have 1 on the second one. What I said, because here I have to look for digits that are different than 0. That 0 does not count, right? But here I'm going to count that I need to have 1 digit over the decimal point, and that's the number of digits I will have in my answer here. So therefore, for problem number 2, your answer is going to be negative 1.8 for all the rules and reasons I gave you so far. Let's see the third problem. On the third problem, you have a negative times a negative times a negative. What I said, if I will have an odd number of negatives, my answer will be negative. If I will have an even number of negatives, my answer will be positive. Now here I have 1, 2, 3 of them, obviously odd. My answer is going to be negative. If you don't believe me, just go 2 at a time. Negative 2 times negative 3 is going to be positive, right? And then I have positive times negative, which will give me a negative number. And all you're left with would be to multiply 2 times 3, which is 6, times 4, 24. You just follow the order of operations. The answer would be negative 24. Okay, moving on. Okay, problem number 4. 1/2 times negative 10 times 5. What I said, first thing, let's decide the sign, right? Positive times negative would be negative, negative times positive. The answer here would be negative. And then you follow order of operations. What is 1/2 times 10? Well, you can cross cancel here. 2 goes in 10 5 times, right? And all you're left with would be 5 times 5, which is 25. And that's why the answer here would be negative 25. Good. Moving on to the next one. First thing, decide what is the sign. Negative, negative, negative. 3 negatives will give me a negative product. Then you multiply 22 times 3, and then times the other one. However, multiplication is commutative, so I can multiply first thing 3 times 2/3, and as you can see here, 3 and 3 here will cross cancel. I will be left with 1 and 1. Your product would be nothing else but 22 times 2, which is 44. Okay, I hope you understand. Moving on, next one. 4/5 times negative 5 times 0 times 4. What is the answer? The answer would be 0. If any one of your factors in a product is 0, okay, then your answer is going to be 0. Now, you have to be careful that 0 cannot be as one of your denominators, because we know that's undefined. We cannot do such division, and you will be done by just stating that there is no answer, or that expression is not defined on the real number set. Next, let's simplify, right? Following the same rules for the order of operations. You guys remember PEMDAS, right? Parentheses, well, we have, but those parentheses are not the parentheses we should be aware of. They're just given to us here to delineate and to identify which number is negative, which one is positive. I have negative 6 times 5. That would be negative 30, right? Plus 2 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Now we're getting back to adding integers with different signs, and the rule says what? You subtract the smallest number from the largest one in absolute value, right? So it'll be 30 minus 8, which is 22. And then keep the sign of the largest one. So the answer here will be negative 22. Okay? If I'm going too fast, pause it, go back, do whatever is necessary to understand. Next problem. 3/4 times 1/8. Now, one is negative, one is positive. The answer will be negative. Do you guys remember the rule when you multiply two fractions? You multiply top times top, so it'll be 3 times 1, right? And that will be 3 over bottom times bottom, which is 4 times 8, and that is 32. Next one, minus. Same story, multiply top times top, which is 1, right? 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 8, 32. And now, because I have two fractions with the same denominator, my denominator will stay, and all I have to do is to perform the operation given with my numerator. So it'll be negative 3 minus 1. Okay? What is the rule? When you subtract, you add the opposite. Okay? So basically your problem now is adding two integers with the same sign, for which we have the other rule that says you add their absolute values. You have the absolute value of negative 3 plus absolute value of negative 1, which is 3 plus 1. That gives you 4. And keep their sign. Everything over 32. Now, think about, are you done? Well, you are done with subtraction here, but you still need to simplify, because 4 and 32, they're both divisible by 4. you can divide each one by 4. I'm going to show it to you here. Divide by 4, right? You have 4 divided by 4, which is 1. Don't forget about its sign. 32 divided by 4 is 8. And your answer to this problem would be negative 1/8. Alright, problem number 9. We have to simplify. To simplify here, as you guys can see, we have to use the distributive property and follow each step. Make sure we're aware of the signs, and then combine any like term if possible. First one, negative 5 times 2x, right? Because I'm taking this negative 5 and I'm multiplying it to everything inside the parentheses. Negative 5 times 2x would be negative 5 times 2. Obviously would be negative 10x. Next, plus is the sign inside of my parentheses. I have negative 5 times x. That gives me negative 5x. Now this is one way. Another way is to just follow your order of operations, right? I've been carried and I didn't pay attention to that. And the first thing here, you can just combine your like terms in the parentheses, right? Which is what? 2x plus x gives you 3x, and then you have negative 5, right, times 3x minus the other one. You can, if you want, you can go ahead right here and multiply. 3 times negative xy gives you what? Negative 3xy. And then you can simplify it from here. Negative 3 times 3x would be negative 15x, right? Minus, you add the opposite, so basically it will give you plus 3xy. And this is where you have to stop, because x and xy are not the same. Now if you follow the way we started here, you will move on and say, well, first of all, this is negative 5x, right? And then I have this negative 3 times negative xy will give me positive 3xy. Moving on, combining your like terms, negative 10x minus 5x, right? And I should put parentheses here. That would be negative 15x plus 3xy. Well, obviously you should have the same answer, regardless the way in which you're choosing to solve it, right? But maybe the best way would be to combine the two like terms in the parentheses first before you multiply. Okay. Problem number 10. Negative 5ab times 6. Negative times positive is going to be negative. You multiply that 5 and 6, that will give you 30ab, right? Minus, now following order of operations, you first add that 4 plus 1, which gives you 5. ab times 5 will be 5ab. You're subtracting here, right? Which means you add the opposite of the number that gets subtracted, and I have negative 30ab plus negative 5ab. They have the same sign. I'm going to add 30 to 5, which is 35. 35 what? ab's, and I will keep the sign negative, right? And that's the answer to this problem. Let's try another one. Okay, problem number 11. 2.3 times 4c minus d, and then I have another expression here, right? So here I cannot simplify the parentheses. I need to use the distributive property and multiply that 2.3 to everything inside the parentheses. So I have 2.3 times 4, okay? And if you can't do that in your head, you can write it down separately and say, what is 2.3 times 4? What is the rule? You have 2.3 times 4. You multiply by 4, ignoring any decimals right now, will be 4 times 3, which is 1. 12. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1, 9. And now because you have one digit over the decimal point, you have to have the same for your product. So it'll be 9.2 what? C. And then I have 2.3 times D, which is 2.3 D minus, okay, 0.1 times 0.5 Same rule, you multiply 1 times 5, which gives you 5. Now because you have 2 digits over the decimal, not different than 0, right? You should have the same, so it'll be 0.05. But now be careful, with negative 0.1 times negative 0.5, that should give you positive 0.05c. And then I have negative 0.1 times 8d, which will give me negative 0.1 times 8 will be 0.8d. If you cannot do it like that, you just take it separately down here and multiply by the rules of multiplying decimals. Remember, you multiply the numbers ignoring the decimals, and then you will make sure that you'll have the same number of decimals as the sum of all your factors here. Next step, combine your like terms. 9.2c plus 0.05c will be 9.25c, right? 9.25c. Next, I have negative 2.3d minus 0.8d. And once again, if you can do this in your head, you can take them separately. I have 9.2 plus 0.05. As you can see, the major thing here is to line up your decimal points, and you just add every column, right? Now, same story here. Negative 2.3d minus 0.8, and you can take it separately. So I have negative 2.3 minus 0.8. Well, when you subtract, you add the opposite, right? So basically, I have 2.3 plus 0.8 first, because that's the rule. If they have the same sign, you just add them up, right? Make sure your decimal points are lined up. 8 plus 3, and you go right to left, would be 11. Bring down the decimal point. You have 1 that was carried over, right? 2 plus 1 is 3. And that's why the answer here would be 3.1. However, you need to keep their sign. So for your expression here, you'll have 9.25c minus 3.1 what d. And this is the answer for problem number 11. Let's do some cleaning here. Problem number 12, okay? Problem number 12, you follow order of operations. You multiply first and then subtract, right? So I have 0.99 times 1.1. What is the rule? First of all, sign. The sign will be negative because I have a negative times a positive. 9 times 11 gives me 99. But then I have 2 digits, over the decimal point. So this will be 0.99 minus, okay, let's leave it that way. A negative times a positive here will give you a negative number. I got 51 times 6. You can multiply 6 times 1 is what? 6. 6 times 5 is 30, right? How many digits I have over the decimal point? Well, I have 2 of them, right? So the answer here will be negative 3.06. I'm moving on, right? When I subtract, I'm adding the opposite. Okay, so your problem now becomes negative 0.99 plus 3.06. Because they have different signs, I will subtract the smallest absolute value from the largest absolute value. And I can do it right here. I can say 3 minus 0.99. Okay, 9 out of 6. You need to borrow 3 from that 3, right? And you will have 7. Right here is 9 out of 9 actually, right? That'll be 0. You bring down the decimal point. As you can see, the decimal point was lined up already. And here, instead of 3, I should have a 2 because I borrowed a unit from it, right? And that's why the answer here would be 2.07, and the sign would be the sign of the largest number, which in this case was positive, and that's why the answer would be 2.07. So the answer for problem number 12, 2.07. Thank you very much. I am done. Okay. Find each product. Number 1, positive or negative? Positive. 3 times 4, 12. Okay. Number 4, positive or negative? Positive times negative, always negative. I got 2 times 5 over 7. that will give me 10 over 7. If you want, negative 7 goes in 10 once. 7 out of 10 will be 3 sevenths, right? Problem number 5. Positive or negative the product? Negative. 3 times 7, 21. 4 times 8, 32. There's no other way to simplify. Problem number 6. Negative times negative. The answer would be positive. But I have ways to cross cancel. 5 and 5 will be canceling each other. Then I have 4 and 6. They're both divisible by 2. I can divide 4 by 2, which is 2. 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3. Your answer here would be 2/3. Okay? If you are confused about how I got that, imagine that you have, when you multiply two fractions, you have top times top, which is 4 times 5, over bottom times bottom, which is 5 times 6, right? Which I can rewrite it as what? 5 times 4 over 5 times 6, which is basically what? 5 over 5 times 4 over 6. Now, you can see why 5 and 5 are cross-canceling. And now if I'm dividing 4 by 2 and 6 by 2, I will get the same answer. Okay, I hope it makes sense. Next problems. 6.8 times negative 1.3. The answer will definitely be negative. And you can multiply now 68 times 13. 3 times 8 is what? 24. 3 times 6, 18 plus 2. 21 times 8, 8, 6. You add them up, right? 4, 8, 8. But now, because your answer needs to have the same number of digits over the decimals like your factors here, 6.8 and 1.3, the answer would be negative 8.84, right? Next problem, negative times positive, negative times negative, the answer would be positive. 5 times 7 will be 35, 35 times 3, right? 3 times 5, 15, 3 times 3, 9, plus 1, 10. That's why the answer here would be 1 of 5. Problem number 9, negative times negative, your answer would be positive. However, 3 and goes in 9 3 times, right? So I can cross cancel there. And then I have 3 times 2, which is 6. Next problems. Negative, you see you have positive times negative times positive times positive. The answer would be negative, right? Can I cross cancel here? Sure, because 8 goes in 24 3 times. And then I'm following order of operations. 3 times 3 is what? 9. 9 times 5 is what? 45. 45 times 3 will be what? 3 times 5, 15. 3 times 4, 12, plus 1, 13. The answer will be negative 135. Problem number 14. Negative times positive, the answer would be negative. I'm going to multiply 36 by 57. You can go backwards if you want. It's still the same because multiplication is commutative. 7 times 6, 42. 7 times 3, 21, plus 4, 25. 5 times 6, 30. 5 times 3, 15. Plus 3, 18. You add them up. 2, 5 plus 0, 5. 2 plus 8, 10, 20, right? So the answer here will have this digits 2, 0, 5, 2. But because I have 3 digits and plus 1, I need to have 4 digits over the decimal point. And that's why your answer here is going to be, let's write it, better will be negative 0.2052. Okay. Next problem. Negative times negative will be positive times positive, positive. So your answer will be positive. And then all you have to do is to multiply those numbers here, right? In whichever way you want. You can go 1.3 times 1.32 times 5, which is what? 5 times 2, 10. 5 times 3, 15, plus 1, 16. 5 times 1, 5, plus 1, 6. Now make sure you have the same number of decimals, of digits over the decimal point. Okay, and then I'm multiplying by 2.1. So I have 66 times 2 times 21, right? 1 times 6, 1 times 6, 2 times 6, 12, 2 times 6, 12 plus 1, 13. You add them up, 6, 8, 3, 1. So the answer here will have these digits 1, 3, 8, 6. But now I need to have 1, 2, 3 decimals, right? I mean digits over the decimals, and that's why the answer will be 1.386. Make sense? I hope it does. By the way, tell me if I'm wrong. Simplify. Follow order of operations, multiply first, right? So the answer would be 5 times negative 7 would be negative 35, plus negative 3 times 6 would be negative 18. Okay, they have the same sign, add them up. 35 plus 18 will be what? 8 plus 5, 3. 1 gets carried, right? 1 plus 3 plus 1 will be 5. Keep their sign. Alright? Next one. 23, 7x times negative 3y plus 3x times negative 4y. Multiply first. 7 times 3, 21. The sign is what? Negative 21xy. Here, plus 3 times negative 4 will be negative 12xy. Moving on, they have the same sign, right? You just add them up. 21 plus 12 will be 33, negative 33xy. Okay? Next problems. Next problem. 1/4 times 8 over 3. We're multiplying first each one of this, right? Would be negative. Now 4 goes in 8 2 times, so it'll be negative 2/3. Here I got 5 and 5 that will cross cancel, and also 2 and 6. 2 goes in 6 3 times, 2 goes in 2 1 time, right? So it'll be minus 1/3. Okay? Well, when you subtract any real number, you're adding the opposite. So your power now becomes negative 2/3 plus negative 1/3. What is the rule? Add their absolute values. 2/3 plus 1/3 gives me 3/3, right? And keep their sign. But 3/3 is nothing else but 1. So the answer would be negative 1. Problem number 27. 6 times 3m minus m. Well, let's do the parentheses first. Gives you 2m, right? This one gives you 3m. So here I have 6 times 2m, which is 12m, plus 3 times 3m, 9m. M plus m will give me m. 12 plus 9 will be 21m. Okay? And these are the two last problems for today, guys. Same story here. Multiply that 9 to everything inside the parentheses. 9 times 2ab would be 18ab. Minus 9 times 3, 27c. Minus, okay, I'm going to work in the parentheses. Well, actually, let's remove the parentheses, right? Minus 4ab. But then I have, because basically subtracting, I'm adding the opposite. And I'm adding the opposite of everything inside the parentheses. So it'll be plus 6c. Next step, combine your like terms. 18ab minus 4ab will be 14ab. Minus 27c plus 6c, they have different signs. I will subtract the smallest from the largest. 27 minus 6 will be 21. 21c, right? And keep the sign of the largest one, which is minus 21. And this is the answer to this problem. 31. Order of operations, right? Distributive property, 5, 6 times negative 24a plus 5, 6 times 36b, right? Plus negative 1/3 gets multiplied to everything inside there, will be negative 1/3 60a, right? Minus, and I have negative 1/3 times 42b. Okay, we're going and we're performing one operation at a time. Now here, positive times negative is going to be negative. 6 goes in 24. I can cross cancel 4 times, right? So it'll be 5 times 4, 20, 20a. Moving on, 6 goes in 36. 6 times, 5 times 6, 30b, right? 3 goes in 6 here. 2 times, negative 1 times 2 will be negative 2a, right? Next, well, minus minus, I will add the opposite, so whatever the product here will be, the whole thing will be positive. 3 goes in 42, how many times? Well, 3 and 4 once, 3 and 12, 4 times, will be plus 14b equals, right? Negative 2a minus 2a, negative 20a minus 2a will be what? Negative 20 minus 2. You add the opposite, will be negative 20 plus negative 2 will be negative 22. So I have negative 22a, 30b plus 14b will be positive 44b. And we are done with this problem too. Okay, so pay attention to the signs. Pay attention when you multiply a negative by a negative by a positive, especially when you have them in parentheses. You see as here, this product will be negative, but this negative 1/3 times negative 42b will give you a positive. Just pay attention and you will be fine, and follow the rules. This is it for multiplying, rational numbers, real numbers. These are the rules, these are the steps. I hope you guys got it. Thank you. I'll see you in class in a few minutes.